Good evening. Thank you very much for your time. I get a sense from Ivan Jim that he's hoping more jobs will be saved. Do negotiations around this issue continue?
We have established what we believe to be a solid base for growth going forward, Sally. We have agreed on 1,000 employees to be taken on with the launch of a restructured SAA. We have also catered for 1,000 employees to be in the temporary employment layoff scheme, rather. And as to how many people going forward SAA will employ will be determined by the market. And as we have seen, both with some of the airlines that have taken off here in South Africa and around the world, there's still a lot of anxiety associated with flying. So we are hoping that conditions going forward will improve, but at the moment they are not looking good. So it would not be good for us to put more people into the airline without a supporting business plan.
Right, so it is, as you say, a globally very difficult time, and SAA has had problems for a long time. So I know that you are happy with the revised plan. I want to know if the new business rescue plan is approved by creditors on the 14th of July, will government actually fund the plan? Because there are mixed messages. I tried to press Ivan Jim on this if he had any clarity, and he didn't seem to have any clarity. There's a great concern that there is no more money coming from Treasury for SAA, and that even if this plan is approved, it'll fall flat because there'll be no money to pay creditors, there'll be no money given out for severance packages. What can you tell us tonight?
Government is committed to supporting the business rescue plan, and we understand that funding will have to be secured, and we are mobilizing all kinds of sources to ensure that the deadline that has been set of the 15th of July by the business rescue practitioners is met. So we are confident, Sally, that by that particular date, they will be in a position to be able to provide the required funding.
And is that required funding 10 billion rand?
It is 10 billion rands for this current financial year to basically clean up the balance sheet of SAA. Government had already committed 16.4 billion rands over the next 3 years in the 2020 budget, which dealt with the legacy debts that were guaranteed in SAA.
So please explain, why did National Treasury say there's no more money coming if you're telling me tonight that you are committed, that the department is committed to finding that funding? I'm confused.
Well, National Treasury is the best position to answer that question. But what we have is we have an interministerial committee that was set up by Cabinet to oversee the restructuring of SAA. The Finance Minister, our Minister, the Minister of Science and Technology and Labour and Employment are part of that effort, including the Minister of Tourism, to ensure that we have a plan that is viable for SAA and that is supported by an appropriate funding plan. So I cannot speak for National Treasury.
So are you saying that you disagree, that there's disagreement, that National Treasury might be saying one thing but something else is going to happen?
Well, there has been a common voice from the government, as exemplified 2 weeks ago with the statement that Cabinet produced, indicating that there is support for the effort that is led by the Department of Public Enterprises to ensure a viable airline emerges from the business rescue process. And from where we are sitting, we are speaking from one hymn sheet, so to speak, or singing from one hymn sheet as government.
Yes, but at the same time, Treasury says there's no money, so you're not actually singing from the same hymn sheet.
Well, we have not had those words. What we know is that Minister of Finance, when he stood up in Parliament for the 2020 budget, provided 16.4 billion rands for this particular airline, and we believe through this joint effort within government that an appropriate resources will be found to ensure that this business rescue plan is funded and is implemented, and we have an SAA that takes off at an appropriate time.
Okay, because, you know, there's a National Treasury document plan saying no money is going to be released. We've all seen the press release. Again in Parliament this week, there was talk of no funding. So I am confused. And I think particularly tonight of the people who are waiting for answers. You seem to be fairly certain that there is a commitment to get this money. It's just a matter of gathering the money. But at the same time, we know that there have been some very strong statements from National Treasury and from Tito Mboweni about this money not being forthcoming. So which is it, or are you not sure?
No, we are certainly quite sure. And as you heard me earlier, I said we are mobilizing all kinds of sources to ensure that the funding is secured to fund the business rescue plan. And one of the points or rather we have come out about a week ago also indicating that we are talking to private sector partners that can come in as strategic equity partners into this particular business. So, we should not necessarily look at one source of funding for the funding of this business rescue plan. Okay. But at an appropriate time, on the 15th of July, we'll be in a position to be able to basically to back up what I've just said this
okay.
evening. Thank you.
Well, that does sound very hopeful. I want to talk to you about the pilots. I know that most players seem to be fairly happy with the compromise that this business rescue plan is. What is the concern with the pilots?
Well, the pilots want an improved plan. They have made what we believe to be unreasonable demands with regard to severance packages. And these are pilots that have been beneficiaries of a very generous regulating agreement, which is an employment agreement with SAA, which has its roots in the last days of the previous regime, the apartheid regime, which was an agreement that was very expensive even back then, and has proven to be unaffordable. And if we were to go into the new air with the restructured SAA with it, it will certainly create quite a drag for this airline. So what we have appealed to them is that can we have this regulating agreement which is not affordable, which has a very archaic system of seniority that is linked to it, which has really been anti-transformation in the last 26 years, as seen by the makeup of a SAA pilot cohort. So we have said to them, can we throw it out? Can we start with employment conditions for all employees that can ensure a viable airline? And that's what we have said. And as things stand today, they are the only ones that are standing on the outside. And we hope that they will see the importance of arriving at an agreement.
I understand.
I
have to I'm so sorry to jump in. I have to very quickly ask you about SAA Express. So many people are so worried. They have not received a full salary, I understand, since February. There's so much focus on SAA. What is happening with SAA Express, and are you as committed to helping them as you have been around SAA?
Yes, we are committed to helping them, but as to getting the airline up in the air of government funding, that will not be feasible necessarily. What we have to come to terms with is that the damage that was done at the airline due to very well publicized corruption and mismanagement created a hole that, despite putting 1.5 billion rands into the airline over the last 2 years, we could not fill that gap. What we are focused on doing is ensuring that the employees at SAA Express are looked after, and that there's an appropriate plan for their exiting from the business. And we remain hopeful that we'll be able to get to that point, because as you can imagine, with the airline being in liquidation, there are legal challenges that we have to overcome, and we are working very hard in ensuring that happens.
Well, thank you very much for your time this evening. Kgatatso Tlhakudi from the Department of Public Enterprises.